How's it going, everybody? It's Richard here. Just going over how to answer some subnetting questions, kind of a quick, easy way to do it. Um, I'm currently studying for my Network Plus exam. I have a few friends that are working on it as well. Some people brought up some questions. I've looked up different subnetting techniques, how to really kind of go through and figure these things out. Some of them seem really intricate. Found a method that was pretty simplified, pretty good, I felt, and then I kind of made a little variation to it to kind of simplify it even further and make it a little bit easier to kind of do. So first and foremost, just to let you all know, I've never really made a video before, so this is the first video I've ever made. So I'm sorry if it's pretty amateur, not a whole lot of fancy stuff going on with it, or if anything's kind of messed up with it. I'm just kind of putting this out there to kind of show my friends on how to answer some subnetting questions easily. So when you get into the exam, you go to take your CompTIA network exam. It's timed. You don't have a whole lot of time to really work on things. You can't bring anything in with you, so you have to, they'll give you like a whiteboard or whatever where you can kind of use a grease pencil on or whatever to work out anything you need to work out. So first thing I would do when I get in there is I would go ahead and make this chart right here that I have in the middle. And I'm going to kind of go over how to make this chart, and then we'll explain it. And then I've got a few questions here that we'll go through and try to answer. So when you get in there, first thing we'll do is go ahead and do this chart. We're going to start off with the first column here. And this first column is going to go 1 through 8. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. Okay. In the second column, I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to work my way up. To me, it's kind of the easiest way to really do it. You start with 1 and you're going to go by powers of 2. So 1 times 2 is 2, times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, 16, 32, 64, 128, right? And then you don't necessarily have to do the column. I like doing it because it makes it a little quick reference, a little easy to do. But you can start with 256 and subtract the second column from that. So 256 minus 1 is 255. And then you could do 256 minus 2, or the way I like to do it is 255 minus 1. So 255 minus 1 is 254. 254 minus 2, 252. 248, 240, 224, 192, and 128. All right. So now we have the 3 columns here. This is the chart. This is all you need to really reference to be able to answer your subnetting questions fairly easily. Because you could get 1 subnetting question, you can get 5 subnetting questions. You don't know, so you don't want to waste too much time on it. So you want to try to make this as quick and easy as possible. So let's talk about the columns and what they are and what they mean. So the first column here, the 1 through 8, this is going to represent the number of bits in the octet. Okay, so we'll be talking about how many bits are in that octet. Okay, and that's going to correlate with the next column, which is going to be the number of IPs in that octet. Okay, and then the last column, which will go with those as well, is going to be the number that you'll use for the subnet mask. Okay, so you got number of bits, you got the number of IPs, and you got the number for the subnet mask. So pretty good. That chart was pretty quick to put together. Didn't take too much time. All I gotta do is practice making that chart, and before you know it, you know how to make the chart, and it's pretty quick and easy. So let's look at some of the questions. So first, what is the first valid host of the network 10.222.128.0/17? Okay. So when you're looking at that, you first have to understand the basics of subnetting, which I'm not going to get too much into what subnetting is. You should already know that if you're looking at trying to find an easy way to do subnetting questions. But with your subnet, you're going to have your network ID is going to be your first IP, and then you're going to have a usable IP range, and then the last IP is going to be the broadcast IP. Right, so you know that the first IP of the network is going to be the network ID, the last IP of the network is going to be the broadcast range, and everything in between is the usable IPs. Okay, which would be a first valid host would be the first usable So that's what they're looking for there. So let's kind of talk about what this is first. So we got 10, 222, 128, 0. Okay, that's the network. Now this is a /17. So if you remember your CIDR notation, what that means, variable subnet length mask, that's the number of bits. You're gonna have all ones to the left, all zeros to the right, right? So let's talk about number of bits. Now each octet can hold how many bits? If you remember, that's 8 bits for each octet. There's 4 octets. They can hold 8 bits each. So we need to make 17. So how do we make 17? Well, we'll put 8 in the first column. We'll go ahead, put another 8 in there. That makes 16. And then that means we need one more bit to make 17, right? And then we don't need any more, so 0 on the last one. So we got 8 bits, 1 bit, and 0 bit in each octet to make out a /17. So what we could do is, if we wanted to, if you were interested, we could look at writing out the subnet mask. So if you reference your chart, we've got 8 bits. We'll go to the bits column. You got 8 bits here. The subnet mask would be 255 for 8 bits. So if we did 255, we got another 8. So obviously that'll be 255. Then we have a 1 in the third column. So if you look at 1 bit, that's going to be a 128. So 128. And a 0 is, well, guess what? That's a 0. All right, so the subnet mask for this network is actually 255.255.128.0. So that was pretty easy to look at. Okay. So we want to look at a /17. So first off, when we're looking at this network, /17, whenever you're writing these things out, it's always best to remember that if you have a 255, or if you have 8 bits or whatever, however you want to look at it, you just drop the number of that network down. So 10, we got a 255 here, so we're going to drop 222. So 222, right? All right, so then we got to figure out what the last 2 octets are for the first valid host, okay? So if we look at a /17, we got 8 bits, we got 1 bit. So in this third column, we've got 1 bit. So if we look at our chart here, we got 1 bit. The number of IPs is going to be 128. So there's a possible of 128 IPs per network there, right? Well, per octet there, right? So if you look at that, that means that you could have, we always start with 0, right? So it could be 0 to 127, because 0 counts as 1, right? So 0 to 127, and then you could have 128, and if you add another 128 to that, or 127, because 128 counts as 1, you're going to get 255, right? And that's actually all. You can only do 0 through 255, right? So these are the 2 ranges for the networks. So the question is where would you start? Well, being that this number right here is a 128 already in the question, that means that you're going to have to start in the range that includes 128. So that means we're going to start with 128. But if you remember, network ID is the very first one. So if you have 128.0 right there is at the beginning, then your ending is going to be the 255, right? So 255, and then the fourth octet would be 255, right? So you got 128.0, and then you got 255.255, it's the last. That means your usable range is going to start at 128.1, and then it's going to end at 255.254, right? Because your last one's going to be, well, I don't know why I just took that off. Well, it did, whatever. So your last one's always going to be 1 minus the broadcast, and your first usable is going to be 1 plus the network ID. So when you look at this, your answer is going to be the 128 and then 1. So the answer is 10.222.128.1. Now that seemed like it was a little bit to go through. See, there's the answer right there. But as you start understanding how this works, you can do this on your own you won't have to do half the stuff I did. I was just kind of explaining some things and showing how the different ways you can use this chart. But you'll see how quick that really is. So you got /17, you do the 8810, you see 1, you already know 10, 22, the 1 correlates with the 128. 128 is actually the number right here as well. So you got 0 through 127 and 128 through 255. 128 is the start, but that's the network ID, so you can't have 0 there. It's got to be a 1. I mean, that's pretty quick, kind of go through. But let's practice a couple more here and kind of see what we come up with. So next one, what is the last valid host of the network? So we already discussed. Here, I'm gonna go back and put that on. We already discussed that the last one is going to be one less than the broadcast, right? The last valid host is going to be one less than the broadcast because you can't use the broadcast. That's reserved for broadcasting, right? So let's go ahead and try this out here. So we've got 192.168. 192.168. 166, 224. This is /27, so to get 27, we're going to say 8 bits. We're going to do 8 bits. Another 8 bits gives us 24, and we would need 3 more bits to make 27, correct? So if we wanted to write out the subnet mask, 8 correlates to 255, 255, 255, and 3 is going to correlate with 124, or 224. So 224. And there's your subnet mask, 255, 255, 255, 224. Now remember, anytime you have 255, you go ahead and drop the number down. So 225 or 255 is going to drop down 192. That's going to drop down 168. And that's going to drop down 166. Okay. So now we want to figure out what's the start of this network, 224. So if we're looking at 224, we'll go ahead and see that's 3 bits on this /27. We'll go to the 3 bits on this /27, and we know that there are 32 IPs, right? So this is where there's a little bit of math added into there, okay? So what we're going to do is we are going to take this number right here, this 224, and we're going to divide it by 32, okay? And you say, well, those are 2 big numbers. That's a lot of math. How do you do that quickly? You don't have to do it quickly, okay? You just look at it and you take like your best guess, right? So if you drop the 2 off, that gives you a 3, right? And if you drop the 2 off, drop the 4 off right there. That's 22 and that's 3, right? That means 7. So that's going to be 7 something, right? And in actuality, if you do the math, 7 times 2 is 14, carry the 1. That's actually how many times 32 goes into 224, 7. So that's an actual even round number. And I'll show you here as well. So 224 divided by 32, press enter. Yep, answer 7. So that's 7, right? So what that means is, if this had decimals on it, that would kind of change things up, which we'll talk about that a little bit later on, which will explain why I'm doing it this way. It'll make things a little bit easier. So because it's a whole number, it's a little bit easier to do. So you take that 7, you multiply by 32, and that gives you the start of the network, which we already know that that's 224 because that went into it evenly, right? So we know that the beginning of this network is going to be the 224, all right? And then you say, okay, well, what's 224 plus 32, right? Because on that 3 bits, we have 32 IPs that we can use, right? So if we add 32 to that, which we can't really add 32 because 224 counts as one of them, so you want to add 31 to it. So 31 to that, that's going to give you 255, right? Which that's the max number that can be there anyways, right? So you know the network ID is going to be at 224. The broadcast is going to be 225 or 255. So obviously 225 to 254 is going to be our usable range. And we are looking for the last valid host. So the last valid host is 254. 254. Boom. So Again, I'm explaining things a little bit more, so it sounds like it's going through a lot, but it's really not. Once you start doing it and you understand how to do it, you can skip half the stuff I'm talking about, and you'll be able to get your answer right away. Um, but take a look over here, see what answer we got. 254. That's right, 192.168.166.254. Pretty easy. Not too bad. All right, well, let's clear this off. Let's work on the next question here. So, next question here we've got is, what is the cider notation of 255, 255, 255, 240? Well, this is it. This is a real quick, easy one. So you got 255, 255, 255, 240, right? Well, you already know that 255, if it's the subnet mask, that's 8 bits. So we're going to say, 8 bits. So we'll go over here. We'll say 8 bits. That's another 8 bits. That's another 8 bits. And then we just find out where 240 is. That correlates to 4 bits. So we're going to say 4 bits right there. And then all you got to do is just add these up. 8 plus 8 plus 8 is 24. Add another 4 to that. And you get 28. Wow, that was super easy. That was a quick, easy question, right? Slash 28. That's what we're looking at there. So I just wanted to show a quick little question there on how to go from subnet mask to cider notation. That was very easy to do using our chart. All right, so what is the subnet mask that correlates to /17? Well, we already kind of did /17, but just to kind of write it out, you say, well, what's a /17? That means you're going to have 8 bits. You're going to have another 8 bits. You're going to have 1 bit, and you're going to have 0 bits on the last one. We know 8 is 255. We know 8 is 255. We know 1 bit is going to be how many? 128, right? So 128, and then 0 for a 0, right? Boom. A /17 in cider notation is going to be 255.255.128.0. So moving back and forth between those is pretty easy, right? So let's move on to the next question. Kind of get into a little bit more difficult ones. What is the broadcast address for the network 172.255.139.76.255.255.255.252? All right, so again, we can kind of write this out right here. We got 172, 255, 139, 76. The subnet mask is 255, 255, 255, 252. Which, you could write it in bits if you wanted to. We don't necessarily have to. Let's skip that for this time. So they want to know what the broadcast address is. Now, remember, anytime there's 255, we're going to drop it down. So we already know 172. We already know 255. We already know 139. So now we just need the last one. So if we got a 76 right there, we've got 252. Okay, so if we find 252 on our chart, on the subnet mask, we have this right here. There are 4 IPs for the network, right? So you take your 76 and you divide it by 4, right? And how many is that going to be? You got 4 and a 7 is what, 1 time with 3 left over, 9. So that gives you 19. That's a nice round even number, which means your start is going to be at 76, right? Now this was kind of easy because it's only how many IPs we said? We said 4 IPs, right? So if 76 is a start, then that means you also have 77, you also have 78, and you also have 79. So there were 4 IPs. Remember what I said before, you don't add 4 to 76. You subtract 1 from the IPs to make 3, and you add that to the first one, and that gives you last. So 3 plus 76 is 79, right? It's because 76 counts as one of the IPs. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 IPs. The beginning is 76, the ending is 79. So that means that 76 is the what? The network ID, because that's the beginning. Your usable range is what? 77 through 78. And your broadcast is going to be 79. So we are actually looking for the broadcast ID. That's going to be 79. So our broadcast is going to be 172.255.139.79. And let's check our answer here, see what we got. Bam. That's exactly what we got. So that was pretty quick, pretty easy. Nothing too crazy there. All right, let's clear this out. We'll look at the next question here. What is the maximum number of valid subnets and usable hosts per subnet that you can get from 172.20.0.0/28? Oh my God, what did we just do here? We just went way out of left field and started talking about valid subnets and usable hosts. There's an IP there. How do we do this problem? Well, number one, whenever you're talking about this, we don't care too much about the IP. What we care about is that /28. Okay, so let's see what is 28. So that's 8 bits plus another 8 bits plus another 8 bits. That gives us 24. That means we need another 4 bits right there. So if you look at 4, we find it on our chart. That means there's 16 IPs for the subnet, right? So that's 16 IPs. But they're wanting usable hosts. So if you have 16, one of them is the network ID and one of them is the broadcast. So we're going to have to subtract both of those off there because the usable host is going to be in the range right there, right? So if we subtract 2 from that, we're going to get 14, right? So that means we have 14 hosts. We have 14 usable hosts per subnet, right? That's pretty simple, right? Now the question is how do you get the valid number of subnets? Well, I'm going to show you a quick little thing you can do here. Basically, you look at your IPs, which is 16, and then multiply it by 256. You've got, it's in the 4th octet, so we're going to say 256 right here, right? Let's multiply that by 256. So if we say equals 16 times 256, what's the answer going to be? It's going to be 4096. Now, if you're in the middle of an exam, yeah, you might have to write that out and kind of do long multiplication or however you want to do it to try to figure out the exact number there. But that's what you're going to come out with. So 4,096 subnets with 14 valid hosts per subnet. And we didn't really have to look at this too much. It was mainly just looking at that /28. So pretty easy stuff. Let's check the answer real quick just to make sure. Yep, 4,096 subnets and 14 hosts per subnet. So that wasn't too bad. It seemed like a crazy question, and then once you started answering it, then you were like, oh wait, that's not too bad. Okay. Now this last one here is kind of go into that thing where I was talking about using, when they were decimals and stuff and what we need to do with that. But here we go. So what is the last valid host of the /27 network that 192.168.1.88 resides? That's an interesting question. Well, let's go ahead. Let's write this out, okay? So first, we've got an IP 192.168.1.88. So this IP is on a network. It is a /27 network. So it's on this /27 network. So that's 8 bits plus 8 bits plus 8 bits, which is 24, which means we need 3 more bits to make 27, right? So we've got this host is on this /27 network, and we need to find the last valid host of that network. So let's find out what the network is. Okay, let's find the network ID. Let's find the usable IP range and the broadcast ID, and then that's where we'll be able to find that last valid host, right? Because that's the last number in the usable IPs, correct? So we'll take that 3 and we'll look at the bits over here. So we've got 3 bits, which means there are 32 IPs per range, right? So you take that 32. Well, we're going to take 32, right? But we're going to start with that 88, right? This 88 in this first octet, and we will divide it by that 32. Okay? And what number is that going to give us? Okay? So if you take 88 divided by 32 and you're saying, man, I don't have time to be trying to figure out all this stuff, well, simplify it. Let's say 90 divided by 30 is what? 3, right? So it can't be 3 because that's going to be more than 88. So that's going to be 2 point something, right? 2 point something. you don't even have to know what it is. I'll go ahead and let you know it's 2.75, but you don't have to know. It could be 2.68, or it could be 2 point whatever. That doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the 2, okay? And then what you do is you drop the decimal, and you just take 2, and you multiply that by 32, okay? What's 2 times 32? 64, right? So that means the beginning of the network is going to be 64, all right? And then what do you do with that? You add not 32, but 31 to that. So add 31 to that, and that's going to give you what? 31 plus that? 95, right? So network ID is going to be .64. The broadcast ID is going to be .95, which means the usable is going to be 65 through 94. So that means that the last valid host is going to be 192.168.1 and 94. So that question kind of seemed a little bit difficult, but once you did it real fast, it wasn't too bad. So like I said, you take the 3 bits, there's 32 IPs in each range, so you got to find the range that 88 is in. So you take 88 divided by 32. You don't have to know the exact math. You just know it's 2 point something, right? Because that means it's going to be between the second and the second and the third range, right? Well, it's actually in the second range. So that's why we did the 2 times 32. That means the beginning of our range is 64. Add the 31 to that. 95 is the broadcast, and the usable host is 65 through 94. Well, guess where 88 is? 88's right in there. So that means this host is in that usable IP range. And the last valid host for that IP range is going to be 94, right? So we answer this right here. Boom, 94. So that was pretty easy, right? All we did was make this chart right here. And then just simply writing down a couple things while we're doing the question, we were able to answer the question fairly quickly. It wasn't too bad. I'm sure there's some more difficult questions there could be on there. If there's any that you come up with and you're not understanding how to use this chart to figure it out, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try to answer them as best I can. I'm not a professional at this. Like I said, I'm studying for my Network Plus, but I feel like using this method right here has been kind of the easiest way to answer any subnetting questions that I've come across. Just using this right here has made my life so much easier with subnetting, and I can focus on learning the other aspects of Network Plus and not focusing so much on something where you might only get one question on subnetting in your entire exam. You could get 5 or 6, who knows? But that's why you want to try to figure an easy way to do subnetting, so that way you can focus on retaining the rest of the information you need for Network Plus. Like I said, feel free to leave any comments below. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a great day.